What is up, YouTube? Zuki M1 here, and I am back with a brand new YouTube video. Today we are going to be taking a look at me, Zuki M1, personal tier list. This, obviously there is no way to go about evaluating how difficult or how strong a boss is. That being said, these bosses are the ones that I personally feel are the best and or worst bosses in the game available for you to fight against. So there are 10 bosses in total, right? Some more difficult than others, and some not difficult at all. So we're going to get into the list, and we're going to talk about who are the best bosses. And right off the bat, we're going to get this out the way. We're going to put the heart as one of the best bosses in the game. Just the only boss that you have to literally go out of your way to go and unlock to fight against. You have to collect the 3 shards from beating the game the first 3 times with the ironclad, the silence, and the defect. Once you beat those guys, story, you unlock the ability to be able to fight against the heart, which is literally one of the most difficult bosses in the game, if not by a lot of people's standard, the most difficult boss in the game, for a couple different reasons, right? The first one being is that it is able to reduce the damage that it takes in a single turn. Meaning, let's say you have a high damaging build. The most damage you can inflict to the heart in a single turn is 300. It has 750 health. Mind you, every card that you activate also deals 1 point of damage to you, unless you have one of the relics that reduces damage by 1, then the heart does nothing to you. But let's say you don't have that relic. If you don't have that relic, every card that you activated to get up to that 300 damage, you're taking damage for the entire way. And it's not like the heart doesn't hit hard. The heart hits like a grown-ass man throughout the entire course of the fight. From 50 to 60 to 70 damage in a single turn. And the reason why it hits like that is because it's the final boss, right? It expects by this point in the game that you should have a deck that is equivalent enough to be able to deal with that point of damage. So yeah, it can be pretty tricky. That being said, I would say that this is probably one of the best bosses in the game, one of the most difficult things to be able to beat. Once you defeat it, you feel like you are the greatest player in all of everything. So definitely worth the challenge. One of the best bosses to fight against. You literally have to go out of your way to compete against this boss. So I definitely think it's, one of the greatest. Now, the second and final best boss in the game, and again, in my opinion, is the time snail. So the time snail, what it does is every 12 cards you activate, kind of seeing the pattern here, every 12 cards that you activate will automatically in your turn. This does not reset per turn. So if you activated 5 cards on one turn, 5 cards on another turn, your third turn you only get to use 2 cards before it activates and skips your turn entirely. That is extremely strong. That with the fact that it also increases its damage every single turn, and it also hits like a grown-ass man to begin with. So it has a game-breaking mechanic just like the heart, but it also has the ability to be able to just outright in your turn. So you can deal as much damage as you want to it, but it has to be done within 12 cards. So very difficult at times, especially if you have a deck that is really good at drawing through your deck to get to the big meaty plays that you need, but you can't get to it just quite just only off the fact that you have to use the cards to draw into the other cards to get to the cards that you need to be able to deal massive amount of damage to the snail. So it's a really difficult boss. Actually, my first 2 times ever beating a tier 3 boss was against the time snail, which is pretty funny. But that being said, I was lucky. The builds that I was going for with the first 2 times that I fought against him didn't rely on playing a lot of cards. So that's probably the reason why I was able to beat him the first 2 times. But every time after that, I ran builds that uses a lot of cards, and he would beat me every single time. You know, sometimes I just wish that I didn't have to go against him, but it is what it is. But those 2 are the best 2 bosses in the entire game, in my humble opinion. Alright, so now we are going on to the more difficult bosses. Not ones that are necessarily the best bosses in the game, but they are definitely not something to scuff at nonetheless. Alright, so for the first slot, we're going to go ahead and give that to the Awakened One. So the Awakened One is a fox-like creature, and it has 300 health and 2 minions. Both of them are Kotis, the ones that get stronger each turn, that gives themselves more damage as the time goes on. So what about this boss that makes it one of a difficult boss, but not one of the best bosses or an okay boss? So this boss, its gimmick is that it hits very hard, as to be expected, but it also has the ability that once it dies, it resurrects itself from the dead with max HP, and it hits even harder than it did before it died, which is really annoying. So if you're running like a corruption build for Ironclad, or you don't have any orbs for the defect, or you used up all your poison on it before it when it died the first time, guess what? All of those things are now not a resource for you right now. And I said it to say, like the Ironclad, when you go with the corruption build, every every skill that you use gets exhausted. Unless you got that spoon that makes it so only half of the cards that you use that would get exhausted actually get exhausted, and the other half goes to your graveyard. But that's not the point here. That's depending on seeing a certain relic. If you don't see that relic, then all of your skills are burnt, and so now you only have attacks to go against a creature that has 300 health and deals roughly around 30 to 50 damage a turn. Right? Sometimes even 70 damage, but that's pushing it. So it's a very difficult boss, but it's not one of the best. Honestly, it really kind of boils down to this creature being more of a meat type of boss. What I consider a meat boss is one of those bosses where you just dump damage into, so you can have those big flashy plays because you don't have to worry about it dying anytime soon. So you can dump like an absurd amount of damage into the creature and not have to worry about it dying anytime soon. So it's a pretty okay boss, you know, nothing crazy or anything like that. But it's definitely not like it's not one of the best bosses in the game, in my honest opinion. Alright, so next up we have the Collector. So the Collector is a boss that has minions. So both of the difficult bosses have minions, which I think is not a bad thing per se, because it does forces single target decks to have to figure out who to mitigate the damage to. Hint hint, wink wink, always kill the minions first, please. You're doing yourself a huge favor, trust me. Kill the minions first and then focus on the boss. But strategies aside, the collector, the reason why this boss is a difficult boss is, you guessed it, it hits really hard. And it has an ability to give you a status effect where it lowers your attack and lowers your armor for a set amount of turns. And that can be pretty detrimental. But again, the same problem kind of falls onto the collector as it does on some of the other bosses. He's just a giant meat shield, to be honest. He just absorbs a lot of damage and doesn't really do too much outside of just taking a lot of damage and sometimes occasionally dealing a lot of damage. And if you kill off the minions, there are turns where they're going to focus on trying to get their minions back into the battle to fight, so that turns into free turns to deal damage to them. So it's not like anything crazy or anything like that, but it can be pretty I mean, it can be pretty difficult sometimes depending on when you see them. So yeah, the boss is the collector is okay. He's okay. I wouldn't say he's like, maybe I might actually lower him on the tier list. I'll give it a little bit more thought when I go into more details about the bosses and stuff. So the next boss that I want to put up here is actually the twins. I actually might move them up. Actually, let's move them up and move him down. So the twins is actually pretty cool in the sense that you got to fight against two big ass meat bosses, and they hit pretty difficult. They shield each other every single other turn, so they got really good synergy going on. It feels like you're getting jumped on the entire time, like you came to the wrong neighborhood, and they're going to let you know why you came to the wrong neighborhood. So they're pretty hard sometimes, not gonna lie. But I've never lost to them. But that being said, I can't undermine what they bring to the table. You know what I mean? Like, you know that something can be difficult even though you've never struggled with it, if that makes sense. But yeah, I feel like the twins are a little bit better than the collector, because the collector really only has that debuff and the minions, but outside of those two things, it don't really do anything special in comparison to all the other bosses. All the bosses in Slay the Spire actually hits really hard, except the earlier bosses, obviously, because those are earlier. But yeah, it's not really that bad. So the twins are definitely going to take the spot of the difficult bosses. The collector will go into the okay boss, and the next okay boss is going to be the automated. So this guy, he's up here just because of the minion aspect, which the collector and him share in common. Outside of that, I mean, you can pretty much focus fire him whenever the minions are down, because he's going to always try to bring them back. And he has one move that you should be kind of scared of. It's called Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam hits you for about 70 damage most of the time. And when it hits you for that much, he stuns himself. So it gives you a chance to go crazy on him the next time you see him. So it's really not that bad, honestly. He's not nothing crazy, to be honest. And then we go on to the boring bosses. So these are bosses that I would say are not that difficult, and they're just really big meat shields, but they don't even have anything interesting to try to counterplay against. They just don't do anything really. So we got the warrior, and the I forget what his name is. It's the one that turns into the armor when he takes enough damage. So both of these guys are bosses that you fight against pretty early on. One of them being an Act 1, the other one being an Act 2 boss. But both of them not really giving you the challenge that you look for when you play Slay the Spire. I've gone against both of these bosses with about like 20 or 30 HP before, and I've beaten both of them without taking any damage, right? They can be hard sometimes depending on your build and depending on what you're trying to run and stuff like that, but they're very straightforward bosses. They don't do anything special. They don't do anything difficult. It's just not there. in terms of difficulty. Well, actually, no. You know what? Let's move these guys down because they don't really do anything special. These guys are a lot more special than these two. So the reason why I put the Hex and the Slime and Boring bosses, because when you defeat the slime splits himself apart to however much damage he was when he took about 50% of his health. Which can be pretty tricky because sometimes you gotta deal with 3 to 4 different minions now. You have to beat all those minions to be able to press on. And then the fire, he puts burn cards in your deck, and not only does he put burn cards in your deck, he also had his very first turn opening up, they deal about 30 to 36 damage in a single turn. So if you don't have enough health and or armor to deal with that much damage in that single turn, you just straight up just lose. So you gotta respect the damage on that. But this is my tier list, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and hit me up with the young like button. And if you guys want to see the other list that I have, the elites tier maker list, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below, and I will be more than happy to go ahead and show you guys my elite tier list in terms of the most difficult elites to go against and some of the more easier elites to go against. But that is my list. I will catch you guys later. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. But this has been Zuki N1. And I hope you guys have a great morning, great evening, great afternoon, and great night. But I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.